Elizabeth Smart was 14 years old in June 2002. She lived with her parents, brothers, and sisters in Salt Lake City, Utah. On the evening of June 4, 2002, the Smart family attended a school awards event. Elizabeth was scheduled to perform on the harp. The family arrived late, and the performance did not take place. They returned home later that night. According to family statements, the evening followed a normal routine. Elizabeth went to bed in the same bedroom as her younger sister, Mary Catherine Smart. The house was locked. The neighborhood was quiet. June 4, 2002, ended without incident. There was nothing to distinguish that night from any other. In the early morning hours of June 5, 2002, Elizabeth Smart's younger brother, Michael Smart, noticed that her bed was empty. At first, the family assumed there was a simple explanation. Elizabeth may have gone to another room. She may have woken early. That assumption did not last. As the house was checked room by room, details began to emerge that ruled out an ordinary absence. The window in Elizabeth's bedroom was open. At that moment, uncertainty turned into concern. Fear followed quickly. Elizabeth's parents contacted the police. Outside the house, investigators later confirmed the presence of a ladder positioned beneath that window. The scene suggested planning, not impulse. Within hours, police reached an initial conclusion. This was not a runaway case. Elizabeth Smart had been abducted. The search began the same day, on June 5, 2002. Local police led the initial effort. The FBI soon joined the investigation. Volunteers from the community responded in large numbers. Streets were searched, parks and wooded areas were canvassed. Abandoned buildings were checked. K-9 units were deployed. Helicopters surveyed the surrounding neighborhoods from above. Elizabeth Smart's photograph was distributed across Salt Lake City. Posters appeared on storefronts, street corners, and public buildings. The scale of the operation expanded quickly. Despite the manpower and resources involved, no confirmed leads emerged. Investigators focused intensively on forensic evidence. DNA samples were collected from the house and nearby surfaces. Fingerprints were taken wherever possible. Members of Elizabeth's family were interviewed. Neighbors and acquaintances were also questioned. In missing person investigations, police generally prioritize these early forensic efforts because physical evidence and eyewitness information are most reliable in the first days after a disappearance. Leads tend to diminish rapidly once memories fade and evidence deteriorates. About 70% of missing persons cases are resolved within the first 48 to 72 hours, often because of timely evidence and leads that emerge early. In spite of these efforts, no forensic finding led investigators to a suspect in Elizabeth's case. The house remained silent. Evidence was minimal and inconclusive. With few tangible leads, the investigation lacked a clear direction. In the days after June 5, 2002, investigators developed and tested multiple hypotheses. Investigators examined the possibility of a family dispute. Family members were interviewed and their statements cross-checked against timelines and alibis. No evidence emerged to support family involvement. Investigators considered the possibility that Elizabeth had left voluntarily. Her known routines, school activities, and relationships were reviewed. Background checks and interviews produced no indication she intended to run away. Investigators also pursued the possibility of an unknown assailant. Tips of sightings and reports of suspicious persons were logged, checked, and, where possible, followed up in the field. Composite sketches and witness descriptions were circulated to officers and the public. None produced an identifiable suspect. Each hypothesis was tested through standard police procedures. Repeated interviews, background and records checks, canvassing for witnesses, review of surveillance and phone records where available, and forensic comparison of physical evidence. Media coverage and public tips generated a large volume of information. Many leads were unverified or contradictory. Every false lead required time and resources to investigate. Officer hours, volunteer coordination, and analytical work were consumed following avenues that ultimately did not hold. Because false leads proliferate in high-profile cases, investigators must balance exhaustive follow-up with prioritization of credible evidence. In this case, despite extensive follow-up, no tested hypothesis produced a suspect. In missing person investigations, the first 48 hours are often critical. As those hours passed, momentum began to fade. Hours turned into days, days turned into weeks, and weeks stretched into months without answers. Media attention intensified. Public pressure grew, but the investigation did not advance. With no new evidence and no confirmed leads, progress slowed. Time, once an ally, became an obstacle. By early 2003, 9 months after Elizabeth Smart was taken from her Salt Lake City bedroom, investigators still had no confirmed suspect. Based on interviews, forensic leads and memories from Elizabeth's younger sister, police had developed a composite sketch of a man known as Emmanuel. That sketch was released to the public and featured on the television show America's Most Wanted, giving new visibility to the investigation. In March 2003, press outlets and crime programs broadcast images and descriptions of that sketch, along with more recent photographs of the suspected man. This brought fresh attention and tips from across the region. On the evening of March 12, 2003 in Sandy, Utah, a couple was at home watching America's Most Wanted. After finishing dinner plans, they headed to a nearby Burger King. On the parking lot, they saw 3 people, a man, a woman, and a teenage girl walking together. Something in their appearance matched what they had just seen on television. The couple did not hesitate. They called local police to report the sighting. Officers responded quickly. One of the police checkpoints stopped a suspicious vehicle. Inside were 3 individuals. The teenage girl seated in the back claimed her name was Augustine Marshall, an alias likely encouraged by her captors. But under closer examination, officers confirmed the girl's true identity: Elizabeth Smart. The abduction of Elizabeth Smart was carried out by Brian David Mitchell and Wanda Barzee. Mitchell, a self-proclaimed religious prophet with a documented history of mental illness and prior arrests, had previously worked at the Smart family home as a handyman. He was not a stranger. He knew the house. He knew the family. The crime was not random. It was deliberate. On the night of June 5, 2002, Mitchell entered Elizabeth's bedroom and forced her out at knife point. Barzee waited outside. During the 9 months that followed, Elizabeth was held in makeshift campsites in the mountains above Salt Lake City and later transported to California. She was repeatedly sexually assaulted by Mitchell. He subjected her to forced religious rituals, declared her his wife, and used threats of death and divine punishment to control her behavior. At times, she was chained to a tree to prevent escape. Barzee actively assisted him, helping enforce rules, reinforcing religious manipulation, and participating in the concealment. Elizabeth was often disguised in robes, veils, and sunglasses when taken into public. She survived by complying, observing, and waiting. In 2010, after years of competency evaluations and federal proceedings, Brian David Mitchell was found guilty of aggravated kidnapping and unlawful transportation of a minor across state lines. He was sentenced to life imprisonment in federal custody. Wanda Barzi pleaded guilty to kidnapping charges in Utah State Court and was sentenced to prison for her role as an accomplice. Elizabeth Smart returned home in March 2003. In the years that followed, she chose to speak publicly about her experience, not as a symbol of tragedy, but as an advocate for survivors of sexual violence and child abduction. She later founded the Elizabeth Smart Foundation, supporting prevention programs and recovery services for victims. Her case revealed failures in recognition, response, and protection. But it also demonstrated something enduring, that survival can outlast captivity, and a voice can return after silence.